Before this story starts, you need to understand one thing. This is not a story about a woman who fell apart. It is not a story about a woman who cried in corners and waited for someone to change his mind. It is not a story about heartbreak or humiliation or a woman defined by what was done to her. This is a story about power. Real power. The quiet kind. The kind that does not announce itself in loud rooms. The kind that has been building, layer by layer, year by year, in the hands of a woman who kept showing up even when no one was watching. The kind that does not break under pressure because it was forged under pressure. Her name is Velora Ashclaw. And on the morning this story begins, she is standing at the center of the Dreadmore Grand Council Chamber, the most important room in the most powerful pack in the Eastern Territories, facing 250 wolves, warriors, elders, border chiefs, allied representatives, every rank and every bloodline that matters in this world, seated in tiered rows that rise toward the stone ceiling like a courtroom built for judgment. The room has been locked in a territorial deadlock for 3 months. 4 senior generals have tried to resolve it. 4 senior generals have failed. The Crowhaven border tension has been bleeding resources, straining alliances, and occupying meeting after meeting with the particular misery of a problem that everyone agrees is urgent, and no one can seem to close. Velora sets her documents on the table with steady hands. She doesn't clear her throat. She does not wait for the room to quiet on its own. She simply begins speaking, and the room goes quiet, because that is what rooms do when someone who actually has the answer opens their mouth. 3 sentences. A named compromise. A cited precedent. A corridor of agreement that had been sitting in the data for weeks, visible to anyone who had looked at the full picture instead of arguing from their corner of it. The deadlock dissolves. The room goes quiet with the particular silence of people who have just been handed the answer and are faintly embarrassed about how long it took to arrive. One elder nods slowly. Another makes a note. The meeting moves forward. And then Zoran Darkfang, Alpha King of Dreadmore Royal Pack, the most powerful wolf in the Eastern Territories, speaks. He directs the outcome with the authority of a man who owns the room. He names the resolution as if it floated in from the ceiling. Velora collects her notes. She has been doing this for 5 years. Now, before this story moves another step, I need to tell you something. I need to tell you what this story is actually about. Because I know what you are expecting. You are expecting heartbreak. You are expecting a woman destroyed by a man who could not see her worth. You are expecting grief and waiting and the long, painful road of someone who gave everything and got nothing back. You will get none of that. What you are going to get is this: a woman who was fated to a king who could not see her, and what she built the moment she stopped waiting for him to learn how to look. She does not crumble. She does not beg. She does not send letters or stand outside doors or rehearse speeches she never delivers. She leaves, and then she rises. You are not here to worry about Velora Ashclaw. You are here to watch her arrive. Hey, quick question. How are you feeling right now? Because I need to check on you before we go any further. Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. It is essential that we get your support through subscriptions, likes, comments, and shares. So, if this story is already pulling at your heart, which I know it is, please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling us where you are watching from. It helps more than you know. Thank you. Now, let us get back to the story. Dawn comes early in Dreadmore. The pack house is still dark when Velora's boots hit the stone corridor. or she moves through the halls with a patrol schedule under one arm and an alliance report in the other, her breath visible in the cold morning air, her mind already 3 conversations ahead of wherever her feet are taking her. A young warrior named Rickson falls into step beside her, near the east wing stairwell. He looks tired. He has been on the night border rotation for 2 weeks, and it shows in the shadows beneath his eyes. "Velora," he says, keeping his voice low the way everyone keeps their voices low before the pack fully wakes. There is a gap in the southern sweep, between marker 9 and marker 11. We are missing about a 1/4 mile of coverage every 3rd rotation. She does not stop walking. She is already marking it on the schedule. 2 adjustments, clean and efficient, or redistributing the coverage without pulling anyone from a position they cannot leave. "It is corrected," she says. "The updated rotation will be on your captain's desk before the morning briefing." Rickson exhales. He looks like a man who has just set down something heavy. "You already knew about it, did you not?" "I knew about it Tuesday," she says. "I was waiting to see if anyone would flag it." He makes a sound that is not quite a laugh. "You were testing us." "I was seeing whether my patrol captains were reading their own reports," she says, and there is something almost warm in her voice, the warmth of someone who is strict because she respects the people around her enough to hold them to a standard. "They were, you were. That is a good morning, Rickson." He peels off toward the barracks. She continues down the corridor. Out at the administration hall, a scribe named Zethan is already waiting at the door with the expression of someone who has found a problem and is uncertain how much trouble he is in for finding it. "The Eastern Supply Ledger," he starts. "Has an error in column 4, Velora says, without breaking stride. "The correction is on your desk. It was there when you arrived." Zethan blinks. Then he steps aside to let her pass, because there is nothing left for him to say. "This is Velora Ashclaw," not the Alpha's fated mate, not the unseen woman in the council chamber, not the quiet figure at the edge of every important room. This, the woman moving through the dark halls before anyone else is awake, already knowing about the gap in the patrol route, already correcting the ledger error, but already carrying the weight of a pack that has no official name for what she does, but would feel the shape of her absence within 48 hours if she were ever gone. The pack does not defer to her because of rank. She carries no title that appears on official documents. They come to her because she makes things work, and they have learned over 5 years of quiet consistency that she always will. She is 32 years old. She has been bound to Dreadmoor's Alpha King by fate since she was 22. She has never once been treated like it. The memory comes the way it always comes, unbidden, in a quiet moment, when her hands are occupied and her mind has half a second to breathe. She was 17. It was late autumn, and the pines around Dreadmoor's southern border were the color of rust and old copper. They're beautiful in the way that things are sometimes beautiful right before they burn. The rogue pack came at night, fast and coordinated, tearing through the borderline with the kind of violence that does not negotiate. The patrol responded, the pack mobilized, and by the time the sun came up, the rogues were gone. So was Velora's mother. In the days that followed, the pack did what packs do. The elders spoke. The rituals were observed. Warriors returned to their posts because life required it, because grief cannot hold the border, because the world does not pause for loss. Everyone was very kind to Velora. Everyone said the right things. And then everyone went back to their lives, because that is also what packs do. And it is not a cruelty. It is simply the truth of how communities survive. Velora stood alone in the inner courtyard. Beside the old ironwood tree, that had been standing there longer than anyone's memory of it, and the composure she had been holding with both hands finally came apart. Not dramatically, not loudly, just apart. The way things come apart when you have been holding them too long and there is finally no one watching. She did not hear him coming. She heard him sit down beside her on the cold ground, and she looked up, and Zoran Darkfang, 19 years old, already carrying the bearing of the king he was going to become, already built like someone the world had decided to take seriously, was sitting cross-legged on the frost-hard earth beside her, like it was the most natural place in the world for an alpha heir to be. He didn't offer empty words. He didn't tell her it would be all right, because he was young, but he was not foolish, and he understood even then that some things are not all right. They are simply survived. He said one thing. He said, "You are not alone here. This pack takes care of its own." And then he stayed. 2 hours. He did not speak again. He did not touch her. He simply sat beside her on the cold ground, present and still, the way very few people know how to be. When he finally stood to go, he looked down at her for a moment. Then he walked back toward the pack house. That was the night Velora built her devotion on. She spent the next 5 years adding every brick on top of it. Back in the present, back in the grey morning light of Dreadmoor, Velora stands at the window of the administration corridor that overlooks Zoran's tower. The curtains are drawn. They have been drawn for most mornings these past several months. Their morning review, the hour when Dreadmoor's most critical correspondence is processed and direction is set for the day, used to be Zoran's. Velora would prepare the documents, and he would make the decisions. That was how it worked, officially. Unofficially, the decisions had been mostly Velora's for a long time. Zoran had an instinct for the broad strokes, the political weight of a choice, the image it projected, the strength it communicated. But the detail work, the implementation, the quiet architecture of how things actually functioned, that had always lived in her hands. She had not minded. She had told herself she didn't mind. She had believed it, mostly. What she had not been prepared for was the morning the curtains stopped opening at all. There was no conversation, no transfer of duty, no official acknowledgement. What the curtains simply stayed closed, and Velora simply started appearing in the places Zoran had stopped appearing, because the work still needed doing, and she was the only one who could not let it go undone. She looks at the drawn curtains for a moment longer than she needs to. Something in her chest does the thing it has been doing more frequently lately. A quiet, persistent ache that she has learned to set aside because there is always more work to do. Then she goes back to work. She does not see the figure that appears at the edge of the council wing corridor until she is almost past it. Zoriel Nightcrest. She is standing near the entrance to the council wing in a pale grey coat, her dark hair smooth, of her posture elegant in the careful way of someone who has spent considerable time thinking about how they look when they are not thinking about how they look. She greets Velora with a smile that reaches everything it is supposed to reach. "You are already here," she says, with warm admiration. "You work so hard, Velora. I genuinely do not know how you manage everything." Velora responds pleasantly. She has no reason not to. Zoriel is a guest of the court, a visiting dignitary from a well-regarded pack, and she has given Velora no reason for anything other than courtesy. "Good morning, Zoriel," Velora says. "Enjoy the council wing. The morning light is best before the meetings begin." She walks away. It is only later, much later, when she is reviewing the morning's administrative log, that a small and a quiet thing registers in the back of her mind. Zoriel had been standing in that corridor before the morning meeting ended. She was there before anyone who attended that meeting could have told her it was over. She was listening. Velora makes a small note of it. Then she sets it aside, because there is a border report to finish and an alliance update to draft, and the day is already moving. She sets it aside. She should not have 11 days. That is how long it takes Velora to build the Crowhaven peace framework. 11 days of cross-referencing, 3 years of border incident reports, mapping the movement patterns of the disputed territory, identifying the 12-point compromise corridor that would satisfy both packs' core territorial claims without requiring either alpha to publicly concede ground. 11 days of careful, precise, the unglamorous work, the kind of work that happens at a desk before dawn and after dark, the kind that leaves ink on your fingers and a specific kind of tiredness behind your eyes. She places the completed framework on the council table on a Wednesday evening, ready for the Thursday morning meeting. 40 pages. Every argument anticipated, every objection pre-addressed. She comes back 2 hours later to add a notation she forgot. The document is gone. She checks the table twice. She checks the side cabinet where documents are sometimes moved before meetings. She checks with the evening scribe. She checks the anteroom. The Thursday morning meeting happens without the framework. Zoran presents a verbal outline. 3 sentences, broad strokes, the shape of an idea without the architecture that makes it buildable. The council nods. The Crowhaven matter is tabled for further development. No one mentions the missing document. Velora goes looking afterward, quiet and methodical, the way she approaches every problem. She checks the administration files. She checks the document storage cabinet. She checks the anteroom fireplace grate, because sometimes old papers are gathered and burned between sessions. She finds her framework there, not fully burned. Pages curled and blackened at the edges, but enough remaining to recognize her own handwriting, her own formatting, her own 11 days of work in the grate of a fireplace that was lit the night before the meeting. She is crouching beside the grate, a charred page in her hand, when she hears a step behind her. Zoriel is standing in the anteroom doorway. Her expression shifts immediately. A soft, warm confusion. The face of someone who has just encountered an unexpected and slightly awkward situation and is doing their best to navigate it graciously. "Oh," she says. "Velora. I am so sorry. I may have gathered those papers with some old documents by mistake last night. I am still learning the flow of things around here. Everything moves so quickly. I hope it was not anything important." Her voice is gentle. Her eyes, Velora notices, are something else, entirely. Not confused. Not apologetic. Still, the particular stillness of someone who is watching for a reaction and has already decided how to respond to each possible one. Velora looks at her for a long moment. She looks at the charred edges of 40 pages. She looks at Zoriel's warm, concerned expression. "Of course," Velora says steadily. "It happens. Art no harm done." She walks back to her office, closes the door, and sits at her desk. She does not turn the lamp on immediately. She sits in the thin grey light from the window, and she looks at the charred page still in her hand. "I see you," she thinks, quietly. "I see exactly what you are." But she does not move against it yet, because she wants to be certain. Because she is a woman who does not act on a pattern with a sample size of 1. She rewrites the framework from memory, all 40 pages. It takes her 4 days. She submits it through a different channel this time, directly to Elder Orvin Ashclaw's desk, bypassing the main council table entirely. The Crowhaven matter is resolved within the week. No one knows how. The other incidents accumulate like water finding its level, each one small enough to explain, but each one fitting the same quiet shape. An alliance report that Velora submits on a Monday arrives at Zoran's desk on a Thursday. 2 days after the meeting it would have changed. The scribe logs it as a processing delay. It has never been delayed before. A patrol adjustment she filed on a Tuesday is logged as received on a Friday. A delegation from a neighboring pack waits 47 minutes in the Dreadmore receiving hall because no one coordinated their arrival. Velora had submitted the coordination protocol a week earlier. It was never actioned. Each incident, separately, could be explained. Overwork, new staff, the chaotic machinery of a large pack administration. Together, they have a shape, and the shape is too deliberate to be coincidence. Velora can feel the pattern. She cannot yet see who is pulling the threads, or she finds out on a Tuesday evening, in a back corridor of the pack house, by accident. She is taking the long route back from the border records room, a habit she developed years ago, a quieter path that avoids the evening traffic near the main hall. She is thinking about a supply chain discrepancy she found that afternoon, sorting through it in the efficient, unconscious way her mind works through problems when her hands are not occupied. She hears Zoriel's voice around the bend. Not the warm, gracious voice from the anteroom. A different voice. Lower. Clipped. The voice of someone who is not performing. Velora stops. She is at the edge of the corridor's bend. Around the corner, out of sight, Zoriel is speaking to a young scribe named Zethan. His posture, from the shadow Velora can see at the edge of the wall, is small and compliant. Hers is not. Hold her submissions before they reach the Alpha's desk, Zoriel is saying, in that low, precise voice. Every report, every protocol, everything that comes from her office goes through you first, and you hold it for 2 days minimum before routing it forward. If anyone asks, cite processing delays. A silence. Then Zethan's voice, uncertain. And if she submits directly? She will not submit directly, Zoriel says, with the flat certainty of someone who has already mapped the board. She trusts the system. She always has. Velora stands at the edge of the corridor. She does not move. She is not breathing particularly loudly, and nothing in her posture changes. And the only thing that shifts at all is something very deep and very quiet, far below the surface. She trusts the system, or the words land somewhere specific. Then Zoriel turns, not toward Velora, but toward the far end of the corridor, and the warmth falls back into place like a curtain settling after a breeze. She says something light to Zethan about finding the kitchen for tea, and her footsteps move away. Velora counts 3 full seconds at the edge of that corridor, long enough to be completely certain, long enough for the last fragment of doubt to dissolve. Then she walks back to her office. She closes the door. She sits at her desk in the dark. She does not feel shocked. That is perhaps the most honest thing she can say about this moment. She does not feel shocked, because some part of her has known the shape of this for weeks, has been stepping around it the way you step around something in a darkened room, or knowing it is there without wanting to identify it. Now it is identified, and Velora is someone who, once she sees a thing clearly, knows exactly what to do with that clarity. She opens her desk drawer. Inside, wrapped in a piece of soft cloth, is a small pressed flower, white, barely larger than her thumbnail, a bloom from the night Zoran formally recognized the mate bond between them 3 years ago. He had said, that evening, that he was glad she was with the pack, that Dreadmore was better for having her. He had not said anything else, but she had pressed the flower. She looks at it for a long moment. Then she closes the drawer. She does not open it again. She keeps working. She finishes what she started, because she has always finished what she started. And because something in her refuses, absolutely refuses, to let Zoriel Nightcrest's scheming be the reason Dreadmoor's border reports go unsubmitted. But there is a new clarity to her movements now, a kind of bright, clean certainty that has nothing to do with anger and everything to do with knowing. She knows what is happening. She knows who is doing it. She knows that the Alpha who was supposed to see her has been looking in a different direction for a long time. And she has started, quietly, to look in different directions herself. The summons arrives on an ordinary morning. Full pack assembly, unscheduled, mandatory. Velora reads the notice. She looks at the phrasing, formal convening, all ranks required, matters of pack significance, and notes the pressed precision of it, the absence of agenda detail. She has drafted enough formal convening notices to know what they mean when they leave the agenda blank. Something is being announced, something that the Alpha does not want discussed before it lands. She takes her treaty framework with her. She has a border negotiation follow-up to deliver afterward, and she has never let circumstance make her unprepared. The Grand Council chamber is full. 250 wolves, torchlight high on the stone walls, banners straightened, every tier of the tiered gallery occupied. The chamber has the particular atmosphere of a room that knows it is about to matter, a held breath quality, a collective awareness that the morning will be remembered. Velora takes her seat at the council table. She sets her documents before her. She looks at the head of the table where Zoran Darkfang stands. Or he is composed. He is always composed in this room. It is one of the things she has always genuinely admired about him, the way he fills a space without pushing. The room believes in him. It always has. He speaks about the strength of Dreadmoor, about the sacred responsibility of leadership, the power of a pack united behind its Alpha King. He speaks with the particular weight of someone delivering words that have been carefully chosen, and the chamber listens with the focused quiet of an audience that understands the weight too. And then he says a name, Zoriel Nightcrest. The words arrive in Velora's chest, the way stones arrive in still water. One impact, clean and complete, and then rings, spreading outward in all directions, reaching everything. She processes the sentence once. She processes it again. The meaning does not change. And across the great table, Zoriel steps forward. Her expression holds the practiced grace of a woman performing surprise at something she has spent months engineering. She is beautiful. She is poised. She speaks to the room with the generous warmth of someone who has spent considerable time studying every name in it. She thanks the warriors by unit. She thanks the elders by title. She speaks of how honored she is, how much she hopes to learn, how deeply she respects the traditions of this great pack. She sounds, Velora thinks, like someone who has memorized a map of the room and is now walking it from memory. The chamber warms. Warriors strike the tables in the traditional pattern of approval. 3 beats, twice over, the sound rolling through the stone space like something released. Murmurs of congratulation ripple upward through the tiered gallery. Zoriel turns toward the edge of the table. She smiles at the assembly with the inclusive warmth of someone welcoming everyone. And of course, she says, her voice carrying beautifully through the chamber, warm and generous, I look forward to learning from Velora. She has been such a support to this court. Support, past tense. She has been. The room does not catch it. 250 wolves, warm and celebratory and wholly absorbed in the significance of the announcement. Not one of them catches what those 3 words have just done. Velora catches everything. She sits for 30 seconds. She does not intend to count them. She counts them anyway. The way you count things when part of your mind needs something to hold on to, while the rest of it processes. For 30 seconds they contain a great deal. 5 years of pre-dawn corridors. 5 years of border reports and alliance frameworks and patrol schedules and treaty drafts that no one attributed, and no one needed to attribute, because the work just worked, invisibly and reliably, like a heartbeat. 5 years of choosing this pack over and over again, quietly, without ceremony, because the 19-year-old boy who sat beside her on cold ground once told her she was not alone here. 5 years of believing that. She has 1 more second. She uses it to arrive at a decision she realizes, in the arriving she made a long time ago, perhaps weeks ago. Perhaps the night she stood at the edge of that corridor and heard what Zoriel said to Zethan in the dark. Perhaps even earlier than that. Her hands reach up to the collar of her coat, the Dreadmore crest pin. Small, heavy, the pack's emblem pressed into dark metal. She has worn it every day for 5 years. She unpins it. The movement is clean, unhurried, the movement of someone performing a deliberate, considered act, not a reactive one. She sets it on the stone table. The sound it makes is barely audible over the noise of 250 celebrating wolves. But Elder Orvin Ashclaw, seated directly across the table from her, hears it. He is looking at her when it lands. And the expression on his face, the particular weighted grief of a man watching something he could not prevent reach its inevitable end, is the last thing she registers before she looks away from him. She straightens her documents. The treaty framework she came in to deliver, organized and ready for a meeting that is no longer her meeting, in a room that is no longer her room. She straightens it anyway, because leaving a room in order is its own kind of dignity. And Velora Ashclaw has never let circumstance strip her of that. She stands. She squares her shoulders. She walks to the main doors. Every head turns. The celebration does not stop, not exactly, but it shifts, the way a current shifts when something changes the shape of the water. She feels 250 gazes track her movement toward the door, and she does not give them a single thing to read in her face. Not grief, not anger, not pride performing itself too loudly. Just the steady, unhurried progress of a woman who has made a decision and is implementing it. She does not look at Zoran. She does not look back at all. The corridor outside the Grand Council chamber is cold and quiet. She walks 3 steps. Then she stops. She presses one hand flat against the stone wall. Her palm is steady, but she presses it anyway, for the solidity of it, for the simple physical reality of cold stone under her hand. She closes her eyes. She breathes. Once deep, the kind of breath that acknowledges the full weight of what has just happened without drowning in it. 3 seconds. Then she opens her eyes. She lifts her hand from the wall. She continues down the corridor. That is the only moment she allows herself. 1 wall. 3 seconds. Then she keeps going. Beta Valor Wolfridge is in his office when she arrives. He is a steady man. Not unfeeling. The steadiness is not the kind that comes from not caring. It is the kind that comes from caring a great deal and learning, over years, how to hold that care without letting it destabilize your judgment. He has been Dreadmore's most reliable administrative voice for over a decade, and he has been, quietly and consistently, one of the very few people in this pack who has looked at Velora's work and named what it was. She sets her formal written resignation on his desk. The handwriting is steady. It has always been steady. He looks at the document for a long moment. Then he looks at her face, and she watches something move across his. The particular shift of a man who has been dreading a moment for some time and has now arrived at it. "I tried," he says. His voice is quiet. "Every report I passed upward, every time I named your work in council, I was trying to make him see what he was sitting across from." "I know," she says, for he did not listen. "I know that too." A silence, the kind that does not need to be filled. Then he stands. He crosses the desk and he pulls her into a brief, fierce embrace. The kind that belongs to someone who is something like family, who has earned the right to that particular closeness through years of quiet solidarity. "You deserve everything that is coming next," he says. She does not tell him she does not know what is coming next. She simply nods against his shoulder. He walks her to the outer gate himself. He does not say anything at the gate. He does not have to. He stands there until she is out of sight, and she knows it without looking back, and it steadies something in her chest that needed steadying. She walks for 15 minutes. Then she stops. Then she shifts. Or the transformation comes from somewhere deep, not from pain, not from fear, from somewhere older than either of those things. A dark gold wolf lands on the forest floor and runs. She runs through the pines with the full, unleashed power of a wolf who has been holding still for a very long time. She runs until the smell of torch smoke and formal ceremony is gone from her coat. She runs until the sound of Dreadmore, the particular sound of it, the bells and the voices and the weight of everything it is, fades behind her into silence. She runs until there is nothing left but cold air and dark trees, and the clean, wordless relief of a body finally moving as fast as it is capable of moving. She does not cry. She will not cry tonight. Not because the feeling is not real, but because this is not a moment for grief. This is a moment for motion. This is a moment for the next thing. She runs until she reaches the clearing, and a silver-grey wolf is already there. Enormous. Still, watching her from the far side of the open ground with the particular, measured stillness of a predator who is not hunting and wants that to be clearly communicated, neither threatening nor distant, simply present. She stops. They regard each other across the moonlit clearing for a moment. Then the silver-grey wolf shifts in one unhurried motion, and Alpha Cairo Stormhowl stands in the clearing. He is tall, dark-haired, built with the economy of someone whose strength does not need to announce itself. He has his arms folded, and his expression holds something quiet, something that is almost warm, almost satisfied, in a way that is entirely calm and entirely genuine. "Well," he says. His voice is low, steady, the voice of someone completely comfortable with the weight of his own silence. "You took longer than I expected." She shifts back. She is breathing hard. Her chin is at the angle it always defaults to when she is being looked at, and chooses not to look away. "Were you waiting for me?" she says. It does not quite come out as a question. "I was patrolling," he says. "A beat. I caught your scent 2 miles back." He crosses the clearing toward her. Not quickly. The easy, unhurried movement of someone who knows exactly where he is going and sees no reason to rush getting there. He reaches out. His thumb brushes gently beneath her eye, finding something she hasn't realized is there. Something small and damp that the cold air and the run have not been able to fully erase. He looks at it for a moment. Then he looks at her. His expression does not change into pity, which is precisely why she does not flinch from it. "Let us go," he says. 2 words. No conditions attached, no questions, no performance of rescue. Just a direction and the clear assumption that she is capable of choosing to follow it. She nods. She follows him. Dawn is breaking when they cross into Wolfridge territory. Old-growth trees, cedar and pine resin and firelight visible between the trunks, warm and steady in the grey-blue of early morning. A settlement built between the forest's bones like it grew there, like the trees made room for it, instead of being pushed aside. It feels, Velora thinks, like somewhere the land agreed to. Cairo introduces her to the pack with the simplicity of someone who does not feel the need to make a presentation out of the truth. He says, "This is Velora Ashclaw. She is joining Wolfridge." And then, almost as an afterthought, he adds, quietly, the way he says most things, that she has the potential to be one of the finest people this pack has ever welcomed. Velora looks at him sideways. "That is an exaggeration." "It is not," he says, and keeps walking, with the composure of a man for whom the matter is entirely settled. She watches him go, and for just a moment, in the breaking dawn, with cedar smoke in the air and the weight of Dreadmoor, finally, behind her, something loosens in her chest that she did not know was still braced. She breathes. The pack lights glow warm between the trees. She keeps walking. On her first full morning in Wolfridge, Velor Wolfridge, Cairo's beta, a composed and precise man who carries himself with the particular economy of someone who has learned that competence does not require performance, sets a stack of supply reports and patrol schedules on the table in front of her. No explanation, no instruction, no outline of what he expects to receive back. He simply sets them down and looks at her with the level, assessing gaze of a man who has heard things and needs to confirm them for himself. She sits down. She works through the documents for 2 hours. When she returns to his office, the stack has become a reorganized, annotated document, resorted by urgency, cross-referenced, with 3 patrol inefficiencies flagged and a supply distribution error identified that has been quietly inflating Wolfridge's eastern sector costs for at least 4 months. Velor reads through it slowly. And he is not a man who performs reactions. His face does not do much while he reads. When he finishes, he sets the document on his desk and he looks at her. "You caught things my own staff missed," he says. "It is what I do," she says, simply, without performance or false modesty. He extends his hand. "Welcome to Wolfridge, Velora." She shakes it, and something about the cleanness of that exchange, the absence of surprise in his tone, the simple directness of welcome, settles something in her that has been slightly unsettled for years, longer than she realized. This is what it feels like, she thinks, when your work is received by someone who is actually ready to receive it. She finds her rhythm the way water finds its level, gradually, inevitably, with the easy rightness of things moving into their correct positions. Your mornings with Velor, building administrative systems, reorganizing the document routing that has been functioning but not optimally. He is not a man who praises frequently, which means the moments he does praise carry weight. She learns his signals within a week, the small nod that means he is satisfied, the particular way he pauses before speaking, when he is about to say something he considers important. Afternoons with the Border Scouts, learning the territory, Wolfridge's geography, its pressure points, its natural bottlenecks and defensible ridgelines. The scout captain is a man named Drace. He is lean and watchful and has the kind of economy of movement that speaks to long years in difficult terrain. He has heard things about her. She can feel him calibrating against those things in every interaction during the first week, or quietly testing the gap between the report and the reality. By the end of the week, he has stopped testing. He brings his questions to her before he brings them to anyone else, because he has found that her answers are better. And Drace is a man who cares more about outcomes than about hierarchy. Evenings bring Nirel. She is 16 years old, a Wolfridge-born she-wolf with bright eyes and careful posture and the particular earnestness of someone who wants desperately to do things correctly, and is not always sure what correctly looks like. She hangs at the edge of the administration lodge in the evenings, working on her documents with the concentration of someone trying very hard to be invisible, while also wanting very much to be noticed. Velora recognizes her immediately and completely. She starts stopping by. Not to instruct. Not exactly. Not to hover. Not to correct. Just to sit nearby with her own work and let Nirel ask the questions that are clearly forming behind her careful eyes. She answers them directly, without making them feel small, without making the asking feel like a cost. After 3 weeks, she says something to Nirel that she wishes someone had said to her at 16. "Your voice belongs in this room," she says, while Nirel is hesitating over a report she has clearly revised 3 times too many. Not eventually. Not when you have proven yourself enough. It belongs here now, exactly as it is. Nirel looks at her for a moment, with the expression of someone receiving something unexpected. Then she straightens in her chair and finishes the report without another revision. There is also Selira, the pack healer, quick and warm and seemingly everywhere at once, with the particular gift of making every person she encounters feel slightly more human than they did before. She finds Velora on a Tuesday in the cedar grove east of the settlement, sitting with a border report, and a silence that is only just beginning to be comfortable rather than necessary, and she sits down beside her without asking, and begins eating an apple with tremendous unconcern. "You are the one Cairo has been quietly rearranging his whole Eastern Council schedule around for 8 months, Selira says, chewing contemplatively. Velora looks at her. That is a specific claim. I am a specific person. Selira offers her a piece of apple. He held the senior council seat empty. Velor kept asking when he was going to fill it, and Cairo kept saying when the right person was ready. What we all thought he meant it generally. She pauses. He meant you specifically. Velora accepts the apple. She looks at it for a moment. He could have just offered the seat to someone else. He could have, Selira agrees. He did not. That is the part you should sit with. She stays for an hour. She talks easily, the way genuinely warm people talk, naturally without agenda, making the space around her comfortable simply by being in it. When she leaves, she claps Velora once on the shoulder, with the direct, unceremonious affection of someone who has already decided they like you and has no interest in being subtle about it. Velora looks at the cedar trees for a while after she goes. She thinks about the held seat. She thinks about Cairo saying I was patrolling in the moonlit clearing and the thumb brushing gently beneath her eye. And let us go. 2 words. No conditions. She thinks about the 8 months. She sets the thought down carefully, the way you set down something you are not ready to examine fully, but do not want to lose either. The evenings with Cairo begin without anyone deciding they should. They simply accumulate, the way warm things accumulate in the company of someone who does not make warmth conditional. He finds reasons to be in the administration lodge when she is working late. Not to help, exactly. She does not need his help, and he seems to understand that. But to be nearby, working through his own correspondence at the far end of the table, occasionally asking a question about something she has submitted that he found interesting, occasionally saying nothing at all. She stops tracking his arrivals. She simply starts expecting them. The one evening, after a long council session that ran past dark, he stays behind at the table with a trade summary while she organizes the last of the documents. The rest of the room has emptied. The candles have burned low. The space between them has the comfortable quality of somewhere neither of them is in a hurry to leave. "You should rest," he says, without looking up from the summary. "I'm almost finished." "You said that an hour ago." She glances up. He is closer than she had tracked. Not inappropriately close, simply closer than she expected, and the recognition of it lands in a warm, unrushing way. The candlelight is doing what candlelight does to a room, and neither of them is unaware of the quality of the space between them. Neither of them crosses the line that is forming there. But when she finally closes her last document and wishes him good night and walks to the door, she is aware, completely, plainly aware, that the warmth she feels walking out into the night air is not the candle's doing, and she suspects, from the way he watched her go, that he is equally and plainly aware of the same thing. She finds the high ridge on a Wednesday evening. She doesn't plan to. She is walking the Eastern Perimeter Trail, learning the territory the way she learns everything, through direct, methodical exposure. And the trail curves upward through the pines and deposits her, without ceremony, at the top of a natural ridge. The view stops her. Below, in the valley, Wolfridge glows warm and steady. The pack lights are amber and gold through the trees. The settlement alive with evening movement, small figures crossing the common grounds, smoke from cooking fires rising into the dark blue sky, the sound of the pack at rest, content thoroughly itself. Her pack. The thought arrives without announcement, without drama, without the particular self-consciousness of a thought that knows it is significant. Her pack. She stands on the ridge for a long time. She does not feel like she is building something. She does not feel like she is recovering from something. She does not feel like she is performing either of those things. She simply feels settled. For the first time in longer than she can accurately remember, she simply feels settled. Below, the lights burn steady, and everything she is building glows back at her. The Interpack Summit notice arrives on a Tuesday. Mandatory attendance. Ashclaw neutral grounds. 7 delegations. Full diplomatic protocol. Velora reads it once. She sets it down. She looks at the window for a moment. Then Cairo appears in the doorway of the administration lodge. She has stopped being surprised by this, by how often he appears in doorways at exactly the right moment, as if he has some instinct for when the room she is in has shifted in temperature. He looks at her face. He assesses the way he always assesses, quietly and completely, without making the process visible. "Zoran will be there," he says. Not a question. "Yes." "Do you want to attend?" She considers the question honestly. She does not ask herself whether she can. She asks herself whether she wants to, whether it serves anything she is building, whether she is ready, whether this is the right moment. She is ready. She has been ready for a while. She simply had not had the occasion. "Yes," she says. "I want to be in that room." He nods once. The nod of a man who trusts her answer and does not need to inspect it for fragility. "Then I will be beside you," he says. She looks at him. This man who kept an empty seat for 8 months, who found her in a moonlit clearing and drove no bargains, who asks whether she wants things and then respects the answer. She nods. They go together. Wolfridge arrives first. Velora takes her seat at the center of the delegation. Not at the edge. Not in the supporting position. At the center, where the work is done and the voice carries, because that is where she belongs, and Cairo has never once suggested otherwise. Velora is on her left. Drace stands behind her. Cairo is at her right. The other delegations file in. There's representatives from 6 packs, various ranks, and various levels of tension with various other people in the room. The familiar, complicated architecture of a multi-pack summit. The Dreadmore delegation enters last. Zoran leads them through the door. He crosses the chamber with the composed authority she has always recognized in him. The authority that fills a room without pushing. He is halfway to his seat when his gaze moves across the table and finds her. He misses one step. Just one. A barely perceptible break in a stride that is otherwise completely controlled. He recovers immediately and continues to his seat, and most people in the room are looking at their own documents. Most people. Not all. Velora meets his gaze for the duration it takes him to find his seat. Level. Unhurried. She does not project coldness or warmth. She simply meets his eyes, completely steady, and waits until his gaze moves. Then she returns to her documents. She does not have any internal speeches prepared for this moment. She has simply done her work. The formal session runs for 3 hours. Velora leads Wulfrich's positions through each treaty point with the precision that has always distinguished her from most people in rooms like this. Not loudness, not aggression, just the particular, irresistible authority of someone who has done the preparation and is offering the room the benefit of it. When other delegations make arguments that are imprecise, she does not dramatize the imprecision. She simply offers the more precise version and lets the room do the work of comparing them. Cairo defers to her on complex language. He turns to her during difficult exchanges, more naturally and without ceremony, the way you turn towards someone whose judgment you trust, without needing to announce that you trust it. The room notices. The room notices the absence of condescension in it, the absence of the particular dynamic where a powerful man permits a woman to speak. He simply turns toward her, because she is the person with the answer, and that is entirely obvious to everyone present. Elder Werewolf Ashclaw, seated in Dreadmore's corner as council observer, watches this from his position with the expression of a man who has confirmed something he already knew. The session closes with 3 frameworks agreed and 1 matter tabled for further documentation, and Velora files the outcomes in her folder with the efficient satisfaction of work completed. The room empties gradually. The other delegates move toward the reception area, where refreshments have been laid. Velora is gathering her documents when she hears him. "Velora," Zoran's voice. Close enough that he has clearly been moving toward her while she was occupied. She turns with polite attention. She addresses him by title, precisely and correctly. Alpha Darkfang. Something moves in his expression. He holds it. "You left without explanation," he says. "I filed my resignation through the proper administrative channels on the day I crossed the border," she says. "Beta Velor received it. It was documented. You abandoned your post." She regards him with the particular patience of someone engaging with an argument they have already closed in their own mind. "I left a position that had been functionally reassigned before I departed. I respected your decision by doing so cleanly, without disruption to the administrative calendar." His jaw tightens slightly. "You are making this harder than it needs to be." "I genuinely am not," she says, and she means it. There is no performance of difficulty in her. She is simply telling him the truth. "This is simply where I live now, Alpha Darkfang. This is what I chose." He looks at her for a moment, the searching look of someone trying to find the wound in something and not locating it. The wound, she understands, that he expected to be there, that he perhaps needed to be there. because its absence makes something more uncomfortable than its presence would have. The truth is, she is not performing composure. She simply is composed. The chapter he keeps trying to reopen was closed by her months ago at a desk in the dark, when she shut a drawer and did not open it again. Then Zoriel steps forward. She has been standing at the edge of the Dreadmore cluster, maintaining a very controlled stillness, and Velora has been peripherally aware of her for the entire conversation. Her composure has been excellent. Past tense, because it has now, visibly, to anyone watching, run out. "You left because you could not bear losing," Zoriel says. Her voice is controlled, but there is something beneath the control now, something pressurized and close to the surface. Do not dress failure in dignity. It is still failure. The room is not empty. Several people have stopped moving. Velora looks at her. She takes in Zoriel's expression, the sharp eyes, the tight jaw, or the particular fury of a person who worked very hard to build a specific narrative and is now watching someone refuse to live inside it. She speaks at a normal conversational volume. "You removed my Crowhaven peace framework from the council table and burned it in the anteroom fireplace," she says. "You instructed Zethan, the junior scribe in the eastern corridor, to hold my submissions before they reached the Alpha's desk, and to cite processing delays as the reason. You told Alpha Dark Fang a version of events, and he believed it because believing was easier than asking me a single question. I know all of it. I have known for some time." The temperature of the room changes. Zoriel's expression, the controlled anger, the performed certainty, shifts, not slowly. Quickly, like the way things shift when a structure loses its load-bearing element. And then she moves, not a calculated step, but an unguarded movement, the movement of someone whose strategy has finally collapsed and who is reacting from somewhere beneath it. Velora catches her wrist. Not roughly, not with cruelty. With the clean, unhurried precision of someone who is very strong and has no need to demonstrate it theatrically. She turns Zoriel's wrist with an exact, controlled pressure and holds her in place. Still. Completely still. The room holds its breath. Velora speaks quietly, directly, without a trace of anger, which is more frightening than anger would have been. Wanting something does not make you fit for it. She releases her. Zoriel stumbles back a half step. She does not fall, but the stumble is real, and the room sees it. And the image it creates, of someone finally encountering a thing they cannot outmaneuver, is one that several people in this room will carry for a long time. Into the silence, Cairo speaks. He has been standing where he always stands, when he is not required to be anywhere specific. Slightly back, completely present, watching everything with that particular quality of attention that misses nothing and announces nothing. He steps forward now. He looks at Zoran. His voice is level. No heat, no performance. "You had your fated mate," he says. "You had her, and you looked past her every single day. For 5 years, while she held your court together with both hands, you looked at everything but her. That is your story to carry." A pause. Velora is here because she chose to be. That choice belongs entirely to her. Zoran looks at Velora. She meets his eyes. She does it the way she does everything now, completely, without flinching, without the faint brace she spent 5 years carrying. And then she looks away. Not because she has to. Not because the weight of his gaze is too much. Because she is done, and her attention belongs somewhere else now, and the choice of where to direct it has always been hers. He walks out. She is almost to the door when Elder Werewolf Ashclaw steps into her path. He is old. He has always seemed old to her, the kind of old that is made of accumulated observations rather than simply years. He takes both her hands in his and looks at her face with the slow, careful attention of someone who has spent a lifetime reading people. "You look well," he says. "I am well," she says. He studies her face for a moment longer, something careful and searching in his gaze, as if he is checking not just the surface, but what is beneath it. Then something releases in his expression, not dramatically, not with any performance of emotion, but with the quality of a man setting down a weight he has been carrying for a long time. "You look free," he says. She squeezes his hands. She is that too. He steps aside. She walks out into the night, where the air is cold and clean and full of stars, and somewhere behind her, the lights of Ashclaw neutral grounds burn in the windows, and somewhere ahead, the lights of Wolfridge burn warm in the valley, and she knows, without drama, without ceremony, simply as fact, exactly which direction she is walking. Cairo's study has a fire going when she arrives that evening. He opens the door before she finishes knocking, not dramatically, simply as if he was nearby and listening for her, the way he has a habit of being nearby without it ever feeling like surveillance. He steps back. She comes in. The fire is warm. The room smells of cedar and old paper, and the particular comfortable quality of somewhere that is lived in genuinely rather than arranged for display. They sit by the fire. She talks for a while. She tells him what she realized today, that the summit was not closure. Her closure happened weeks ago, in the dark corridor of Dreadmore's pack house, standing at the edge of a conversation that told her everything she needed to know. It happened the night she set her crest on the stone table. What happened today at Ashclaw grounds was something else entirely. "Confirmation," she says, "that every decision I made was the right one, that leaving was not defeat, that I was not running from something, I was walking toward something. I knew it when I did it, but today I got to see it from the outside." He listens to all of it. He does not interrupt. He does not offer comfort that was not asked for. He simply listens with the focused quality of someone for whom listening is a form of respect, and who has enough respect for her to give her that. When she finishes, he is quiet for a moment. "You are always going to be okay," he says. She looks at the fire. Its light moves across the floor between them, warm and steady, and not in any hurry. "I know," she says, "but I am better than okay now. There is a difference, a significant one." She turns toward him. He is already watching her, in the way he is always watching her, still attentive and warm, and not trying to hide it or make it more than it is. Just watching, with the particular steadiness of someone who has looked at her clearly from the very beginning, and has never needed to adjust the image. She reaches up. She holds his face in both hands. His expression does not change into surprise. It changes into something quieter and warmer, the particular warmth of someone receiving what they have been hoping for without ever letting themselves fully expect it. "I love you, Cairo," she says, simply, directly, the way she says everything when she has finished checking it and found it to be true. He breathes. "I love you," he says. "I have been loving you since before I had any right to." She kisses him first. Slow, deliberate, or not the kiss of someone who has been waiting and is finally allowed. The kiss of a woman who knows exactly what she is choosing and is choosing it completely, with full knowledge of what it means and no reservations about what it costs. When they part, his forehead rests against hers. She can feel him breathe. The fire cracks softly in the grate. Outside, the night is cold and clear. "My Luna," he says softly, against her temple, like something he has been holding carefully for a long time and is only now allowing to be said. She laughs, warm and private, the laugh of someone genuinely surprised by joy, which is different from the performance of it. "You are very confident about that." "I prefer the word certain," he says. She settles against him. His arm comes around her. She looks at the fire for a long moment, and then she closes her eyes, and she is aware, completely, plainly, without any accompanying ache, that she is home. Below the ridge, the lights of Wolfridge burn warm and steady in the valley. Within 3 weeks of Velora's departure, Dreadmoor's administrative machinery begins to make a sound. Not a loud sound, not an immediate collapse. A quiet, grinding sound, the sound of systems that were maintained by invisible hands and are now maintained by no one in particular. Patrol schedules develop gaps that no one catches until the gaps cause problems. Supply orders arrive with errors that compound into disruptions. An alliance report that should have gone to the Eastern Council on a Thursday does not arrive until the following Monday, by which point the context has shifted and the recommendation is no longer useful. A delegation from the Crowhaven Pack arrives in Dreadmoor's receiving hall for a scheduled meeting and waits 53 minutes before anyone coordinates their reception. The name no one says aloud is present in every gap. Zoran knows it. He does not say it either. Late at night, alone in his study with a lamp burning low and a stack of administrative files spread before him, files he should have read months ago, files he now reads with the focused attention of a man trying to understand an error he cannot reverse. He goes back through the timeline. He is not looking for anything in particular, but the pattern finds him. The dates of Zoriel's movements, the exact timing of the delayed submissions, the sequence of Velora's missing work relative to the meetings that mattered, the gap between what Zoriel told him and what the administrative record actually shows, the shape of it, the deliberate, constructed shape of someone who had been clearing a path. He does not find proof, he finds shape, and the shape tells a story with only one possible author. He sits with it for a long time. The truth was never hidden from him. He had access to every document, every date, every discrepancy. The information was always there. He simply never looked, because looking would have required admitting that the version of events he had been given was constructed, and admitting that required admitting who constructed it, and admitting that required a level of scrutiny he had been comfortable avoiding. He retrieves the charred fragments of Velora's Crowhaven framework from the anteroom fireplace grate, where he finds them still sitting among the ash. Her handwriting, 40 pages worth of careful, precise work, visible in the edges that did not fully burn. He keeps the fragments in his desk drawer, not as grief, as a reminder of what careful attention costs when it is absent, and what it requires from here on. Zoriel is quietly removed from Dreadmoor's court, following an investigation led by Velor Wolfridge, who conducts it with his characteristic economy and thoroughness. The investigation's findings are documented. They are not spoken of publicly in the council chambers because there is too much work to do, and because the pack has learned, in the weeks since Velora left, that there is always too much work to do, and perhaps that is itself a finding worth noting. She is not spoken of in Dreadmoor's council chambers after that. In Wolfridge, 3 months after the summit, Narelle stands at the center of the administration table at the pack's annual gathering. She is presenting her first independent council report, not assisting someone, not supporting a more senior voice, leading the report herself, standing at the center of the table with her documents organized and her posture steady and her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Someone in the gallery asks a pointed question, a question designed, perhaps, to test whether the answer was rehearsed or whether it belongs to her. She answers it without glancing at her notes. She answers it with the clean confidence of someone who knows the material because she built it herself and understands it from the inside. Velora watches from the doorway. She does not go in. She stays at the threshold, at one shoulder against the doorframe, watching Narelle receive the quiet approval of the room from a distance she chose deliberately. Because some accomplishments need to be witnessed from exactly the right position, close enough to see clearly, far enough not to diminish them. She watches the room receive Narelle. She watches the moment Narelle understands that the room has received her. She turns and walks away before it is over. She does not need to see the ending. She already knows it. Velora, Cairo's beta, the precise and steady man who welcomed her with a handshake and has become, over months, one of the most reliable presences in her daily work, gets his own quiet resolution. It comes on an evening in the administration lodge when the work is done and the room is comfortable, and neither of them is in a hurry to be anywhere else. He tells her, without particular ceremony, that he knew when he set those first supply reports on her table exactly what he was doing. He was not testing her competence. He knew her competence from her reputation, which had travelled far further than Dreadmore seemed to understand. He was testing whether she felt like home. She looked at him across the table when he said that. He held her gaze with his characteristic steadiness. "Does it?" he asked. She looked around the room. The warm lamplight, the organized filing system she had built herself, the view through the window of the cedar grove where Salira had shared an apple with her and told her about the 8 months. "Yes," she said. "It does." He nodded once, the satisfied nod of a man whose arrangement of events produced the intended outcome. She has a feeling, looking at him, or that Velora Wolfridge has been quietly arranging things for considerably longer than 8 months. She decides not to ask. Some things are better left as certainties rather than confirmed. And Velora, Luna Velora Stormhowl. She runs Wolfridge's court from the center of everything, not from the edge, not from the shadows of someone else's authority, but from the seat that was left open for her, held empty for 8 months in a pack that recognized what she was before she had any reason to show them. Every morning, the pack greets her with the particular warmth of people who have decided to claim someone as their own, not because they were instructed to, not because of her rank, but because she has shown up, consistently and completely, and they have learned what that means. Morixon's counterpart in Wolfridge's scout rotation, a young warrior named Daylor, with his mother's patience and his father's stubbornness, catches her in the corridor before dawn and tells her about a gap in the eastern perimeter sweep. She marks 2 corrections without slowing down. Some things travel. Every evening she returns to a home where she is known not as a system, not as a resource, not as an invisible hand holding someone else's kingdom steady, but as herself, as Velora, as someone whose worth required no explanation to the people around her, because they were already paying attention. On the night of the full moon, she and Cairo are on the ridge above the settlement. The pack lights burn in the valley below, cedar smoke in the cold air, the kind of night that seems to want to be witnessed. She thinks for a moment about the girl who stood beside an ironwood tree at 17 years old and held herself together with both hands in the cold, waiting for someone to stay. She thinks about the 2 hours on the cold ground, and the boy who sat beside her, and the foundation she spent 5 years building everything else on top of. She understands now that the foundation was not Zoran, The foundation was her own capacity for devotion, for endurance, for the particular stubborn grace of a woman who showed up even when no one was watching, even when the showing up was taken without acknowledgement, even when the work disappeared into a fireplace grate the night before. The morning it was needed, that was always hers. She carried it with her when she left. She's standing on it now. Cairo's hand is warm in hers. He is looking at the valley below with the quiet satisfaction of a man whose life has become what he wanted it to become, gradually, through good choices and patient work, and the willingness to hold space for something worth waiting for. 8 months, she says. He glances at her sideways. You spoke with Selira. She's everywhere. She is a healer, he says, as if this explains it entirely. I kept the seat open because I knew. The first afternoon I watched you present Dreadmoor's negotiation framework. The afternoon you were interrupted by one of Zorin's generals and stepped back without losing an inch of your composure. I knew. Some things are clear on the first day. She is quiet for a moment, watching the lights below. You were patient, she says. I was certain, he says. There is a difference. She turns toward him. He is already looking at her. This man who looked at her clearly from the first day and never needed to adjust the image. She rises onto her toes and kisses him, warm and unhurried, the kiss of a woman who is exactly where she chose to be. When they part, his forehead rests against hers. The breath between them is warm in the cold air. My Luna, he says. Yes, she says, simply and completely. Not because she was given the title, because she claimed it. Because she walked out of a room that would not see her, crossed a border in the dark, ran through the pines at full speed with the relief of a body finally moving, and arrived exactly where she was always meant to land. Below them, the lights of Wolfridge burn steady and warm in the dark valley. She looks at them for a long time. Every light a life. Every life a part of the pack she is building, that she has already built, that chose her as readily as she chose it. She was always going to get here. She just had to walk toward it herself.